The reason you desire peace more than anything, because you deal with so much chaos. You deal with so much chaos and you handle so much chaos, and you're constantly having to process so much chaos, even though you yourself may not be chaotic. But because that's all you're constantly dealing with and the atmosphere that you're constantly around, you now have a desire and a craving for so much peace. But this is what God showed me. What you need is not peace. What you desire is order.
Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in. These next couple of videos are going to be about examples of types of toxic family dynamics that we may experience. So it'll be people giving somewhat experience so that you can kind of get a more feel for example of what it might look like as you're dealing with it.
You come from a dysfunctional family. You come from trauma. There was always noise. Lack of structure, lack of order, always problems, yelling, fighting, whatever it may be, right? And the word that he used is chaos. There was always chaos. There was always some kind of chaos happening and going around. And you specifically have been trained in that chaos. There's a personality. There's something that you develop, right? Like a savior complex, your own savior complex from being raised at an environment. You have a role that you're supposed to fulfill. And your role is like you're a firefighter. You are a firefighter in that environment, and it's an expectant role of yours, okay? How good of a participant in that family you are is dependent on whether or not you're willing to, let's say, put yourself on fire to keep everybody else warm, okay? There's an expectancy that you're almost supposed to sacrifice yourself for everyone, right? And you might not be the only person in your family playing this role. There might be other players. There might be 3 or 4 different people playing this role while others get to hang out and watch everything that's happening. But there seems like there's always a dilemma. There's always a problem. There's always an issue. And you're dragged to the forefront, or you feel this heavy sense of obligation or this heavy eye of judgment if you don't show up. Everyone else can show up and not have the responsibility of being judged if they don't show up. But there's an expectancy that your strength is supposed to be there. You're supposed to be there. You're supposed to show up. And if you don't, there's a condemnation that you are going to receive that no one else is going to receive. And that's something that you wrestle and you battle with. So I want to talk to you about that, because God is saying, stop trying to save people because you can't. And let me help you understand why. You can't save them because what they're trapped in, it's not a savable thing. You cannot save it by human effort. A human cannot save you from this. That, what they're trapped in, that spiritual warfare, that demonic oppression, because that's what it is literally something that you have to go to God to get deliverance from. And this is where God is now telling you to move out the way and let him be God. Not only do you need to allow him to be God for you, you need to allow him to be God for them. Okay, so now let me talk about you. The reason you need to let God deliver you, because what's happening is because you still have one foot trying to help them in that pit, and then you're still putting your hands or your mind towards the kingdom, right? In order to get peace for your mind. What's happening is that you are being strengthening because God is faithful. But because you still have your foot inside that pit, all the strength that you're receiving from the Lord is being drained into these atmospheres in which you're trying to save people, or you're allowing the guilt, the shame, the sense of obligation, and all of that, right, to keep you there, and they're taken from you. What you don't understand is that the pit is their home. They don't have any plans to leave the pit. I know you see their potential. I know you see all of that.
Do you feel like every time you speak up in your family, you're made to be the bad guy? Here's what happens in a toxic family. They focus more on your reactions than their actions. They try to make you the problem, labeling you as overreacting, overdramatic, or too sensitive. Maybe they criticize how you said something, the tone of voice, the specific words that you chose, or the fact that you spoke up at all. Now, of course, it's important to be mindful of these things, but we're talking about repeated patterns of behavior where someone denies, dismisses, or deflects anything to avoid addressing their own behavior. Now, toxic families thrive on control and protecting the person who's least likely to change. Blame shifting keeps the dysfunctional patterns intact and avoids confronting the real issues. Over time, you start doubting yourself, wondering if you were wrong to speak up at all. And you might even start to believe that you're the problem. This continuous lack of safety leaves us stuck in patterns of shame and appeasement. But here's what they don't want you to know. Your voice has power. Healing means learning that your truth matters and your feelings are valid.
Thing about growing up in a dysfunctional family is that you're only accepted by your family as long as you operate within that dysfunction. But the moment you start speaking out against corrupt systems within your family structure, you start setting boundaries, you start saying no, magically they stop loving you. That's when you become the black sheep, and that's when you get completely isolated and rejected. Oftentimes it feels like we're losing love, but really what we're doing is losing the dysfunction.
I guess some sort of family gathering, and it happens to be her daughter's first birthday, right? So they get a smash cake for the baby, and while somebody is going to get the smash cake, the girl is clearly stating, or the young lady is, I got a habit of saying girls and boys, I don't know, maybe because I work with kids, but she's clearly stating like she does not want the smash cake in her baby face. It's clear, it's plain as day. Like a boundary has been set. Don't put that cake in my baby face. And so the woman recording it states, well, that's pretty much, well, that's what the cake for. That's what we bought the cake for. And so the girl was pretty much like, okay, put the cake in my face, but don't put that cake in my baby face. Right? So her auntie, because she says auntie, goes and get the cake. The mama is standing protecting her baby from getting smashed in the face with this cake. The auntie go and get this cake and proceeds to push the mama out the way. Her daughter is sitting in a chair, and it looks like one of those little high chair things. Proceeds to push the mama out the way and smash that cake in their baby face. Her auntie looked like she in her 50s or 60s, went and got that cake off the counter, because they said it was on the counter, and smashed that cake in their baby face. So somebody in the comments was like, oh, that's a tradition in our family. Let me tell y'all about these traditions. These traditions, first of all, traditions are made to be broken. That's nothing written in stones. But y'all gonna let these traditions get y'all in trouble on so many levels. I don't care if it's a tradition or not. If I am stating do not do something to my baby, do not do something to my child, I need you to respect that boundary that I put in place. It got me so hot and so heated because that mom looked like she was so defeated. She looked so defeated because clearly she looked in the camera and said, do not put that cake. And I'm talking like she didn't like do the little swipe and put it on the baby's face. Like the baby's face is full of freaking cake. That's why I tell people who lack boundaries will easily cross yours. They will easily cross yours. Now, if the mama of that baby went left on them, they would have said she was wrong. No, she wasn't wrong because she clearly stated, don't put that cake in my baby face. And they was like, well, only one person went against her boundary. No, because the woman in the there was video and it was like, well, that's what the cake is for. If I tell you something, don't be trying to convince me otherwise, because my mind is made up. My mind is made up. But for y'all to do that to that girl or that young lady, for y'all to do that to her and do that to her baby, and then that's why that's why I use the word family so loosely. Nowadays, I use the word family so loosely because this is what y'all do. Y'all manipulate, y'all gaslight, y'all disrespect, y'all lack boundaries. Like, this is why I use this so loosely, because how can you, in all honesty, sit up there and think that was okay for y'all to do that? And for her to say she knew they was going to do it too, because she was like, just put the cake in my face. Because she know y'all was not going to uphold her boundary. Baby, the way I would have turned that house. A person who has no boundaries will break your boundaries. That's all I got to say about it, because that was so crazy to me.
I had a similar situation dealing with family with my child, my firstborn, my son. I was very peculiar with him. I didn't even think that I could have a child, and I did, so I was very protective over him. And all I asked was, If you want to hold him, you need to wash your hands, and then you have to have like one of his little thin blankets over you so that he wasn't on your clothes and smelling your perfumes and things like that. And my aunt went off on me and she was like, what, you think your baby better than anybody else's? We gotta wash our hands before we touch him and all of that. You always doing the most. And I was like, well, if you want to hold him, that's what you're gonna have to do.
I don't blame my mother for her lack of emotional intimacy when she raised me. I don't blame my mother because she learned it from her mother, who learned it from her mother, who learned it from her mother, who was a slave just 3 generations ago. You see, we weren't seen as human. And the part of us that was seen as human was only valued for our labor and what we could produce and how we can care for the lives of others, of everyone but ourselves. We get in this space now where we're talking about mental health as a community, and we're talking about the generational trauma that we've all experienced. And so I am not going to place blame on my mother, who is the victim of a system, who just participated and did what she knew how to do, which was survive. There wasn't any room for emotion in the 60s, the 50s, let alone even before that, because there's barely any emotional safety to open up and be emotionally vulnerable now as a Black woman. And as a Black man, is also equally as difficult, because you are also valued for your labor and what you can produce. You're also taught that your emotional needs don't matter. You're taught that everything should fall on you, all because you're seen as a male in society, when really that's just a patriarchal stereotype.
There's a scene from the Matilda movie, the original one, that lives rent-free in my head. And essentially in this scene, Miss Trunchbull is saying that the way she's been able to get away with what she does for years is by making it outrageous and outlandish. So when the kids tell their parents about it, the parents are like, that sounds crazy, I don't believe you, that's madness. And the reason it struck such a nerve is because if you grew up in a toxic, abusive household, then you know that this is the playbook that toxic people use in real life. I struggled making friends growing up, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of my middle school friends thought that I was some kind of like pathological liar. I remember this one instance where I came into school and this girl that I had finally managed to be friends with wasn't talking to me, along with a few other girls in the class who were icing me out. I did not know what was going on. I did not know what I had done. I'm asking and they're like, you know what you did? I did not know what I did. So after a little begging, finally, the friend shows me the text messages in her phone that I sent her at 9 p.m. the night before. I text her calling her lots of bad, unsavory names, telling her that I like this boy. Why would she go and talk to him and do that to me? And then calling her some more bad names. But the gag is I don't have my phone at 9 p.m. At 8 p.m., my father would come into our room and collect all of our devices and bring them into his room to charge them at night. I didn't send that text message. He did. And the text messages, they weren't on my phone because after he sent them, he deleted them.
It's official. If God decides that he is going to create another world and send us back here, I'm going to need him to let me pick my family. I'm going to need a fact sheet. I'm going to need something, because the one he chose for me this time, they don't work.
I know this is a touchy subject, but hey, we got to talk about it. People, we got to be more aware. We got to realize it. You know, mental health is really important. It basically helps you guide your life. But you know, me, had to end it on such kind of light note. Anyways, thanks for watching and peace.